Scientists have discovered something surprising. The mere act of observation can change reality. But what almost no one told you is that this doesn't just affect the external world, it affects you. Now, think about this. If there's a voice inside your mind observing your thoughts, who is observing that voice? What you believe about yourself might be the greatest illusion of all, and once you realize this, nothing will ever be the same. Welcome to a secret that has been hidden in plain sight all along. But the question is, are you ready to see it? Ever had the feeling that something invisible is always watching you? Like there's a silent presence inside your mind, witnessing every thought, every emotion, every choice you make? That's not just your imagination. It's real, but not in the way you think. We've been told that consciousness works in a linear way, that there's a self inside your head calling the shots, making decisions, and perceiving the world around you. But if that self is the one observing, then there's a question few dare to ask. Who's watching the observer? At first, this might seem like just a play on words, but if you take a closer look, you'll realize it holds a riddle powerful enough to turn your entire perception of reality upside down. Modern science has already uncovered something shocking. The simple act of observation can alter reality's behavior. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. What almost no one talks about is that this discovery hides a much deeper secret. A secret that ties directly into the oldest traditions of spirituality and self-awareness. If you've ever felt that there's something greater behind what we call self, stay with me. Because what we're about to explore could change everything you believe about the nature of your own existence. Now tell me, are you ready to see what's been right in front of your eyes all along? Since ancient times, those seeking to understand the nature of reality have arrived at a fascinating conclusion. The world around us isn't as solid and objective as it seems. Beneath matter, there's something more fundamental, something that connects everything and everyone. The oldest traditions knew this. They passed down this knowledge through hidden texts, symbols, and metaphors, trying to preserve a truth that could completely change the way we see life. And that truth begins with a simple, yet powerful idea. Everything that exists is, at its core, mental. This means that what we call reality is nothing more than a projection of consciousness. The world we see around us isn't separate from us. On the contrary, it emerges from the mind itself. And if that's true, then one inevitable question arises. Whose mind is it? If everything you perceive is just a reflection of a greater mental field, then who is observing that reflection? Who is behind what we call thought, perception, and identity? The answer to this question leads us to one of the greatest paradoxes of consciousness. And maybe, once you understand this, you'll never see reality the same way again. Our whole lives we've been conditioned to believe that there's a self inside us, a control center, a pilot steering our thoughts, actions, and choices. But is that really true? If this self truly exists, then it should be something concrete, something we can identify. But every time we try to find it, it slips away like sand through our fingers. Have you ever noticed that? Close your eyes for a moment and try to locate the one who thinks. Where is it? Who, exactly, is having this experience right now? Throughout history, many sages and spiritual masters have realized something profound. The consciousness that observes cannot be observed. The Buddha spoke about the non-self. Ancient non-dual philosophers explained that what we call self is nothing more than an illusion, a kind of mirage within the mind itself. That means the one you think you are might not be who you really are. And if this realization is taken seriously, it has the power to dissolve many of the struggles we carry. Fear, anxiety, the need to prove something to others. All of these arise from the belief in a fixed self that needs to be defended and protected. But what if that self is just a passing thought within the vastness of consciousness? If you truly look at this with attention, you'll see that this discovery isn't just theoretical. It changes the way we live, how we interact with the world, and how we free ourselves from the invisible prisons of the mind. But before we explore how this understanding can transform your daily life, there's another illusion we need to break. One that makes us feel separate from what we observe. From the moment we're born, we're taught to see the world in terms of duality, me and the other, subject and object, the observer and the observed. This belief is so deeply ingrained that we never even question its validity. But what if this separation is nothing more than a trick of the mind? What we call external reality seems to exist independently of us, but every experience we have of the world happens within our consciousness. Everything you see, hear, and feel isn't happening out there. It's happening within your perception. This means there's a much deeper connection between you and what you observe than you've been led to believe. The ancients knew this. They passed down this understanding through a powerful principle. As within, so without. As without, so within. What does this phrase really mean? That the external world is nothing more than a reflection of our inner state. A chaotic mind projects chaos into life. A clear consciousness manifests as clarity in the world around us. If the observer and the observed aren't separate, then there's a hidden key here. A key that can completely change the way you interact with reality. What would happen if, instead of trying to control what's out there, you started changing the way you perceive everything? This shift in perception isn't just a philosophical idea. It can be applied in a practical way to transform your experience of life. And that's exactly what we're about to explore next. Understanding intellectually that the observer and the observed are one is a big step, but it only becomes real when we directly experience this truth. It's not enough to just know it. You have to feel it. The first technique is simple yet incredibly powerful. Close your eyes for a moment and ask yourself, who is observing my thoughts? You'll notice that there's an awareness perceiving every thought as it arises. Now, take it a step further and ask, who is observing that observer? If you keep investigating, something fascinating happens. You start to realize that there is no fixed self behind perception. There is only pure, limitless awareness with no defined center. This is the mirror of the observer, a practice that directly reveals the illusory nature of the ego. Another technique involves tuning into the universal mind. Imagine your consciousness as an infinite mirror, reflecting everything that exists. Recognize that what you call self is not separate from the whole. Just as a wave is part of the ocean, your individual mind is merely a temporary expression of the infinite mind. Finally, there's the practice of non-resistance. Instead of fighting against your thoughts and emotions, simply observe them without judgment. Let them come and go like clouds in the sky. The more you practice this detached observation, the more you realize that you don't have to identify with every thought that arises. This brings immense clarity and freedom. These practices aren't just mental exercises. They are tools to dissolve the illusion of separation and expand your perception of reality. But what happens when we start living from this expanded awareness? How does it transform the way we interact with the world? And here's something fascinating. This isn't the first time this mystery has been explored. In fact, there's another hidden concept, one even deeper, that can take you to a level of understanding that few have ever reached. To uncover this connection and expand your perception even further, watch the video now appearing in the end screen. In the meantime, let me know in the comments, what was your biggest insight so far? How has this changed your perception of who you really are? I want to hear about your experience. And of course, if this resonated with you, subscribe to the channel. There's so much more to explore, and I promise you, this journey is just beginning. Now get ready, because what's coming next might not only change how you see the world, but how you live in it. When you realize that the self-observing isn't something fixed, but rather a continuous flow of awareness, everything starts to change. The way you react to life situations, handle challenges, and even relate to others undergoes a profound transformation. If you're no longer trapped in the idea of a rigid, separate self, there's no longer a strong need to defend an identity. That means less suffering, less fear, less attachment to the past, and less anxiety about the future. Imagine a common situation. Someone criticizes you or says something that would normally make you angry, but instead of reacting automatically, you simply observe the emotion arise without identifying with it. Suddenly, the anger loses its grip. The need to be right fades away. You realize that none of this truly defines who you are. Another powerful effect of expanded consciousness is the liberation from fear. If the mind creates separation, and that separation is an illusion, then what is there to fear? Life stops feeling like a constant battle and becomes a natural flow. True awakening isn't about accumulating more knowledge or adopting new beliefs. It's about dissolving the illusion of a separate self and realizing that life is happening on its own. When you stop resisting, everything becomes lighter, but there's something even deeper to understand. If this perception can change your experience of reality, then what else can be transformed when you completely let go of the illusion of the ego? The observer effect isn't just a concept from physics. It points to a much deeper truth about the very nature of consciousness. What you call self isn't a separate being observing the world. You are consciousness itself, experiencing itself, without divisions, without borders, without limits. This realization isn't just philosophical. It has the power to transform your life. When you see that there's no fixed self to defend, fear dissolves, suffering loses its grip, the need for control weakens, and in its place, a freedom arises, one that most people can't even imagine is possible. Now stop for a moment and observe yourself. Who is having this experience right now? Who is hearing these words? If you truly look at this question with full attention, without reaching for an automatic answer, you might feel something different. A silent, infinite space. That presence watching, that is the real you.